In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an AI agent that can control your browser. That means it can go and buy something on Amazon, it can book tickets for you or flights, and it can even parse information into a structured format. This requires very little coding and it's very beginner friendly, but we will be using a little bit of Python in order to get this to work. Now we're also going to be using a framework here called BrowserUse. All of this is free, you don't need to pay for anything, and you can use this framework with any LLM. So you can run an LLM locally using something like Ollama, or you can pay for an LLM like Claude or GPT or DeepSeek and have that be kind of the controller of this browser framework. This is insanely cool, you're going to learn a lot. Please stick around and I'm going to show you exactly how this works and how to build it step by step. So first, let's just understand what we're going to be using. Now again, it's called BrowserUse. We can just install it with pip. And really what it is a framework that allows an LLM to control your browser. Now you can control a remote browser or you can control a browser on your actual computer. And that's where it gets quite powerful because it can use the existing context that you have in your browser. So if you're already signed into a website, for example, it can just open that up and it can act as if it were you, which is an issue you have with a lot of the web scraping frameworks that exist out there. There's all kinds of other benefits of it. You can see that it actually performs better than ChatGPT Operator, and the best part is it's free to run locally. Now they do have some cloud service that you can buy, but personally I've never used it or needed to, so I'm not going to talk about that. And in terms of the features, you'll see when we start working with it, but what it will do is kind of take like an image of all of the components that are on the website as well as scrape the DOM, and then the LLM will be able to look at all of that and kind of make a decision on what it should do next. So it can automatically click a button, it can search for a page, it can go back and forth, it can open multiple tabs. It's really interesting. And again, I'm going to show you in this video how to build it, so stay tuned. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. If you're in IT, then you know the grind of endless tickets, constant firefighting, and never enough time. But what if AI could solve that for you? Well, meet the sponsor of today's video, SysAid's AI Agent Builder, powered by Agentic AI. Now, this isn't just another IT tool, it's an absolute game changer, and let me tell you why. With zero coding, you can build AI agents that automate repetitive IT tasks like onboarding new employees, handling software access requests, and even troubleshooting performance issues. Imagine cutting down hours of work to just seconds with a simple chatbot command. Now, your IT team is not meant to drown in tickets, and that's why the AI Agent Builder helps you scale efficiency without adding extra headcount so your IT team can focus on what matters. No more late nights, no more burnout, just smarter, faster IT service management. If you want to see it in action, then click the link below and schedule a demo today. Let the AI handle the grunt work so that your team doesn't have to. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here by setting up our environment. Now I just opened the quick start guide here from BrowserUse because the docs are quite good. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to install BrowserUse and then install Playwright. Now here it's telling you how to use UV to do this. If you're not familiar with UV, which I imagine most of you aren't, then obviously that's going to be difficult to follow along with. So I'm going to show you a little bit of an easier way to get it set up. Now what I'm going to do is open the terminal. Now you can open terminal, command prompt, depending on your operating system. And we're just going to type the following command here, which is going to be pip install and then BrowserUse. Okay. Now this assumes that you have Python installed on your system already. If you don't have Python installed, of course you need to install that first. Also, if you're on Mac or Linux, then you're going to want to make this pip3, whereas I'm on Windows, so I'm just making this pip. Now, some of you always ask me about virtual environments. If you know about a virtual environment, you can go ahead and make one here, activate it, and install it, but I don't want to bog you down by showing you how to do that in case anyone gets stuck at that step. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. Again, all you need to do here is just successfully execute this command, pip install BrowserUse. Now that BrowserUse is installed, we're going to say Playwright install like this. And when we say Playwright install, that's going to install Playwright for us. I already have it installed, so I didn't get any output, but for you guys, you should get some output saying that it was installed. Okay, so that should be everything that you need. From there, we can clear, and then what we're gonna do is just make a new file. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new file here in PyCharm, and I'm gonna call this main.py, and I've just put this inside of a folder that I called AI Web Scraper and that I spelt incorrectly. You can put this anywhere that you want, use any IDE that you want. I'm just using PyCharm because it's good for these types of projects. Okay, now in terms of creating an agent, you can see that it gives us some starter code. So what I'm gonna do is just copy this code right here. However, this isn't gonna work right now because I haven't yet initialized my LLM. So let me make this a little bit smaller and talk to you about what I mean by that. So for browser use, you're going to have some kind of LLM, which is going to be running this framework. Browser use allows the LLM to control the browser. However, you need to provide the LLM or tell it which LLM to use. Now you have a lot of different options here. You can use Claude or Anthropic, you can use GPT, you can use DeepSeek, or you can use a local LLM if you really don't want to have any of your information being pushed out to the cloud. Now, if you are interested in the local LLM setup, I'm going to link this video in the description. It teaches you how to use Ollama and set this up on your own computer. Again, it's from my channel. Once you have Ollama installed, then you can use the Ollama setup steps from the documentation. But if you don't care and you just want this to work as quickly as possible, then follow along with what I do, where I'm going to get a Claude API key. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a new file in the same directory as my Python file called .env. It's important that you name it that. Inside of .env, I'm going to come here and I'm going to copy this Anthropic API key. And then here I'm going to paste my Anthropic API key. Now that's going to require me going to Anthropic, the API console, getting the key and pasting it here. Now, if you want to use a different provider, again, you can go to the documentation. I'm on the supported models page, and you can see if you want to use OpenAI, then this is the env variable that you need. If you want to use Azure, this is the, variables that you need. If you want to use Gemini, this is the variable that you need. And if you want to use Ollama, I think if you go all the way down here, it shows you how to do it here. You can use Chat Ollama and then just run it like that. Okay, so I'm going to go and get my API key and then I'll be right back. So the way you get this, by the way, if you want to follow along with me, is you go to console.anthropic.com. Then you simply go to API keys and then you can make a new key. So you can press on create key here, press create key, it's going to make a new one, and then you can copy it. Now keep in mind, this can be a little bit expensive depending on how much you use this framework. So watch your usage, and again, if you really just want to run it free and locally, then you can use Ollama if you have a powerful enough computer. So I'm going to press on create key, I'm going to make a new one, I'm going to call this browser use 2 because that's what I'm doing, so browser use 2, and then I'm going to copy this key. Okay, so my key is inside of the environment variable file here. Notice I don't have any quotes or anything surrounding it, and that's exactly what you need for whatever provider that you're using. Once you have that inside of here, then you can take this sample code again that we copied from the documentation, and we can actually just run this and see if it works, but we need to adjust the model so that we're no longer using OpenAI and we're using Anthropic. Okay, so I'm just going to copy these lines right here. I'm going to just paste this inside of here. I'm just going to move a few things around. So these first two imports we're going to replace with these ones. And now we're using Chat Anthropic rather than using Chat OpenAI. Now, again, I'm just showing you the copying and pasting because this is exactly how you would do it if you were learning from scratch. And now you can see that your agent is going to be using this LLM, which is now the Anthropic LLM. And if we run this code, it should actually open up a new browser for us and then start completing this task. Okay, so what's going to happen by default is it's going to use Google Chrome to complete this, and it's going to use something in the background called Playwright, which will kind of control the Chrome instance. Now, you can change the type of browser that you're using, and there's a lot of settings you can go through, which I'm going to show you in a second, but it's very important that you close any Chrome browser instances that you already have open. So in my case, I have this instance, so I'm just going to make sure that I close this, and if you want to open some kind of web thing, then open it in like Edge or a different browser in the meantime, because if you have multiple Chrome browsers open, then this isn't going to work, or you're potentially going to get some errors. All right, so we're just going to test this just to make sure that it works right off the bat, and then I will go through some more advanced settings. Okay, so we have everything installed. I'm just going to press the run button here to run my code. I'm assuming that you guys know how to run Python code at this point, and it's going to take a second and it's going to open up the browser. Now you'll see in the console that it's kind of telling us its thought process on what it's actually doing, and it's visualizing everything that's going on. So let's get out of this for 1 sec, and you can see it wants to compare the price. So it's saying, okay, there's no previous actions. We're going to start the task, and then it's kind of walking through what it's going to be attempting to do here in order to figure out what the price actually is. So it looked up the GPT-4o price, found some options here with OpenAI, Azure, etc. And now it needs to find the price for, what is the other one? DeepSeek, okay? So it's going to go and look at DeepSeek and see if it can figure out what the pricing model is. And notice here that it's kind of automating the browser. It's clicking through different pages. I don't need to tell it how to do any of this. It's just figuring it out by using the reasoning model. Okay, so let's pause here, and you can see that it actually failed 3 times here and said it could not parse the response. Now, it still gave us some kind of output here that we could go and read through or that we could print out, but sometimes it does fail, right? Sometimes it's not able to actually achieve the result, and that's just part of using this framework. Obviously, I gave it a very vague instruction because it says compare the price of GPT-4 to DeepSeek V3, but we could give it more detailed instructions on exactly what we wanted to do, and then obviously the chance of success would be higher. Okay, so that's the absolute basics, right? That's how we get this set up. We create our LLM, we create some kind of agent, we say, agent.run, we're running this inside of an asynchronous function, and then we can print out the result. But I want to show you how we can get this to use our own browser context, because notice here when it runs this, that it's actually using kind of like a fresh Chrome instance, something like an incognito window. And in my case, because I'm in the United Arab Emirates, you can see that all of this stuff is Arabic and it's kind of on the right-hand side of my screen. And obviously that's not my default Chrome instance. My default Chrome instance looks different. So if we want to really leverage the power of using our own browser, which is the main advantage of doing this, then we need to change a few settings. So let me show you how we do that. So from the documentation here, if you kind of open up the side menu, you'll see a few different options. We have browser settings and connect to your browser. Now, if you're interested in connecting to a remote browser, then you can check out the browser settings and it shows you how to do that with like a WSS URL. But in our case, we want to go to connect to your browser. Okay, so again, make sure you close all of your Chrome instances. And then what we're going to do is just copy a few lines here where we specify the Chrome instance path so it knows the executable that we should be running. So in order to do this, I'm just going to copy these lines. We'll delete what we don't need. We're going to paste this in here. We can get rid of this. We can get rid of this. We can get rid of this. And then let's take this import and let's just put it up here. And actually it already imported agent, so we can remove the previous agent import. Let's make this a little bit larger so you guys can see it. And what we want to do now is specify the Chrome instance path. Now, if you are on Mac, then you can probably just leave it like this. However, I'm on Windows, so I need to change it to the Windows path that it's specifying in the comment. So let's change that here to be the Windows path. And then same thing for Linux, it would be this one. Again, just copy it from the documentation. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just showing you how to do it. And now we have our browser. Now that we have our browser, what we can do is we can pass the browser to our agent. So we can say browser is equal to browser. And then down here, we can just say await browser.close, and it will close that browser instance for us. So it will stop controlling the browser. So now if we were to run this, it's going to run in our own browser instance. So we should see that it uses my dark mode theme and all of those kind of things. So let's boot it up and see if we get that. Now, sometimes it will take a second to load the browser, so do be patient. And again, if it's not working, make sure you close all of the previous instances. So here you can see it's using my browser. Obviously, I have all of my bookmarks. You can see that this is like, unique to me. It's not just a random incognito instance. And then it will start searching something. So it finds a search window. It's going to start searching. We'll take a second, it comes here. Now I can probably read this a little bit easier because it's not using the Arabic version of Chrome, and you get the idea. So I'm going to stop running that for right now, but you can see that now we're using our own browser. Next, what I want to show you how to do here is how to parse information into a particular format. So if I just change this task, right, and I just tell it to go do something, it's quite good at doing that. I can just tell it go buy me a book on Amazon, for example, and it probably can actually go do that because it will have access to my signed in browser. So it can just load up Amazon, can find the book, and then it can buy it. Now, you probably want to be careful getting it to do something like that, but it can. It's very good at just kind of automating and clicking buttons. But a lot of times you want to parse information and you want to grab, for example, the 5 most recent Instagram posts or something that's kind of difficult to scrape if you weren't using an AI framework like this. So I want to show you how that works. And first, let's see how we would do it if we're just kind of naively going through this. So if I were to go into the task here and say, go to Tech with Tim's Instagram and grab the 5 most recent post captions. Okay, cool. So that's something that we can do. So let's run this and let's see what the output is when we print this result. Okay, so we can see this finished running here. It ended up loading on my Instagram. And then if we look at it here, it's giving us kind of this extracted content, right? So it says extracted content, and then it has some text that says here are the 5 most recent post captions, and then it gives us this information. And if we want to access the extracted content, then we could print result dot, and then I believe it's extracted underscore content, and we'd be able to get like this kind of JSON that we're seeing right here. However, even if we were to get all of this text, notice that it's in plain language, right? Like it's not something that's easy for us to pass to a function or use as a parameter. It's not in this structured format. We want it to be in something that's consistent. So we always know what it's going to look like, and it will be easy for us to kind of parse through it and grab the information that we're looking for, especially if there's a ton of data that we want. So first, let me show you what it looks like if we print the extracted content, and then I will show you how we do the structured output. Okay, so I just ran it, and you can see that I printed the extracted content, and this is what it looks like. So it's a little bit messy, right? It's a list. It says, input from Tech with Tim Instagram, send enter key, extracted page, and then it has captions, and this is what it extracted from that page. And then inside of here, we have, again, like there's all of these new line characters, and it's a little bit difficult for me to parse this information. And I don't know if this key is always going to be called captions. So I want to adjust this to use a structured output model so that I always get this in a particular format. Now, while we're here though, I do quickly want to show you that here are a few methods that you can use to grab information after the agent runs. So you can get screenshots if there was an error, for example, or something, the action names, the extracted content, that's what I was showing you, and then things like the model actions, the errors, etc. And then there's a few other ones here like model thoughts, action results, and final result, which is what we're going to use in 1 second once we start setting up that structured output. So for the structured output, if we go here to output format in the documentation, you can see a simple example that's very similar to what we're going to set up. So let's start following along with this and writing out the code to kind of parse this into structured output. So first we're going to need to import Pydantic. So we can say from Pydantic import the base model, and then we can bring in some classes. So we're going to say class post. Okay, this is going to inherit from the base model from Pydantic. It's not going to be the same as this. It will be a bit different. So we'll just say something like the caption is a string, and then we will say the URL is a string as well. And for now, we'll just get 2 pieces of information, but of course we could extract as much complex data as we want. I'm then going to say class posts like this, again, inherit from the base model. And then I'm going to say my posts is a list of posts. Now you'll see that list is being highlighted red, and that's because I need to say from typing import list like this. And when I import list, now that will work, okay? So now I have my Pydantic models, and what I need to do is I need to tell the model to use these in the output format. Now in order to do that, I need to use a controller. So I need to import the controller from browser use. So from browser use, import controller. Then I'm going to say my controller is equal to a controller, and I'm going to say the output, just like it has in the documentation here, the output model is equal to posts. Okay, so we have 2 classes, one for an individual post, one for having multiple posts. So in this case, posts, we could have multiple things here if we want. We tell it, hey, we want to output the parsed information from our web scraping session into this particular output model. And then I need to pass the controller to my agent. So I'm going to say controller is equal to controller. Okay, now that I do that, I'm going to change this to, rather than be printing the extracted content, I'm going to print the final result. And when I print the final result, we should get these Pydantic objects, or we should get a Pydantic object with posts. And then inside of there, we should have all of these post objects. So let's run this and see if it works. We're going to go here and run. Okay, so it just finished running, and you can see now that we get the expected result. We have posts, we have a list, and then for all of the lists, we have a caption, and we have a URL. Now the URL is incorrect for these posts, so obviously it did something wrong. Previously when I was doing this, it was working properly, but either way, at least we get the output format that we were looking for. So now if I wanted to start using this in like maybe a later step of my code, I would take my final result, right? So I would say, my data is equal to results.final result. I can kind of copy what we have in the documentation here. So I can say, parsed post is equal to post.model validate JSON data. Now what this method does is it converts the JSON, which is what we're getting here, right? So like it looks like a JSON object, into the correct Python object. So internally, we can now use this Python object, okay? So from here, we could say something like parsed.posts, and then this is gonna give us all of the posts. And then we could grab the first post and we could get the caption or something. And we can start using this like normal Python object and kind of passing it to various other parts of our code. Okay, so that's it for parsing it into that structured format. Very useful, something you want to do a lot when you're web scraping. Now I want to show you a few little kind of tips and tricks that can make this a little bit faster and that you definitely want to know about. So first useful thing is the initial actions. Now, sometimes you want the agent to just immediately skip over some steps and go directly to a page or do something predefined. So in this case, they're giving the example of going to Wikipedia and scrolling down so it automatically loads the page. So you're skipping a few steps that the LLM would have to figure out and making this just cheaper and faster to run. So in our case, what we could do is we could set up some initial actions that say, hey, just go to Instagram, like go to Tech with Tim's Instagram, because we know that's what you want to do every single time anyways. And then from there, you can kind of run the, what do you call it, automated script. So what is the URL for my Instagram? It's going to be instagram.com/tech_with_Tim or something. Okay, so I believe that's probably the URL. So that's our initial actions. And then we can just pass to the agent here, initial actions is equal to the initial actions. And then it's just going to do that, right? So now it doesn't need to think about that. It should just automatically go to that page. Let's run it and test that out quickly and make sure that works. And then we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so here you go. I know it wasn't shown on screen, but it just immediately went here to Tech with Tim, and then it can start kind of continuing with the rest of the steps. Okay, so that's the first thing that I want to show you. The next thing I want to show you is sensitive data. So if you need to actually give some passwords or some information or an API key or something to browser use, you want it to be able to use this in your own browser locally, but you probably don't want this data to be passed to the LLM, right? You don't want the LLM that's not running locally on your computer to be able to use this information. So like it's showing us in this example here, we can have something like some sensitive data, and then we can just pass sensitive data here. So sensitive data is equal to our sensitive data. And then now we'll be able to use the X username and the X password, for example, if we were signing into Twitter/X, and it will not actually pass these values to the LLM. It will only pass the name of these values. So the LLM would tell browser use, hey, I want to use the X password in this particular field, but it wouldn't actually know what the X password is. So it's kind of like an environment variable or like a placeholder that actually gets passed to the LLM that's running in the background. And you can see here that the model only ever sees X name and X password. It won't actually know what the password is. So you're not, leaking your password or your credentials to the LLM. Now, if you trust that, great. If you don't, is what it is. You probably just want to run the entire thing locally for yourself. But I thought that was interesting and something worth noting, because you could, for example, tell this like, here's my username and password, go sign into this page and then go do this XYZ thing. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. Obviously, there's a lot more stuff that you can do here. I highly recommend that you look at the documentation. That's why I popped it up for this video, because it is very useful. And that's exactly how I learned how to do all of these things. If you enjoyed the video, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.